James having a power bowl, potatoes and salad. I'm going to talk about The Good Place and Bodies, Rest and Motion. I'm going to be looking up some things out of that Percy Bysshe Shelley book. Well, James is talking about something, probably the Bible, but but I don't know for sure. We'll see where it goes. So, The Good Place, starring Ted Danson and Kristen Bell. And really, it's starring Kristen Bell, who has, I don't know if she'd really made a name for herself as much back then, and maybe that's why Ted Danson got the top billing. I'm not sure. But in any case, this is the first season, and they did a good job right up until the ending. I didn't like the ending of the season. And I seem to remember, like, I watched this years ago, and I seem to remember watching the next season after this too, but I barely remembered what happened, so I watched this first season again and enjoyed it the whole way through. It's really a good idea for a show. So I'll give you a little synopsis of how it goes. So the young woman who is played by Kristen Bell, her name in this is Eleanor Shellstrop, and Eleanor, she's in a waiting room. She's sitting there on a sofa, and the Ted Danson, his character, says she asks where she is and stuff, and he tells her, well, you've died. And he takes her through things, and he's the curator of this place that she's going to be living in, right? But he tells her, don't worry, it's a good place, right? So she's like, yeah, I made it to heaven. And he's like, only 99 or 99.7 or something, or 90 whatever % of people don't make it here, so you're really lucky, right? And she's thinking, I wasn't that good that I should be here, right? She's thinking something's up. And then she's introduced to her little house that is kind of cute and funny, and it's it's tiny and has this stage area for a bed and clown paintings everywhere, and she does not like it, right? That's not her dream house. But so she's thinking, well, this is kind of off, and he's telling her, well, we tried to make your house, I tried to design your house that you would be living in just as your dream house, what you would have wanted when you were alive. And she's like, oh, so that's why other people get these big mansions and I get this cute little whatever, right? And he's like, yeah, you get it, I'm so glad, right? And really, she doesn't want this little house. This is not her dream for a house. And she realizes, oh, there's been a mistake. It's a different Eleanor Shellstrop who's supposed to be here, not me, right? So it turns out they died at the same time, at the same place, and there was a mix-up, and the other one is not in the good place. And but the season goes on from there. It's really entertaining, and I don't think they wrapped it up well. That's all. It was such a great idea, and then it just didn't pan out as well as I think it should have. But whatever, it's still worth watching. It's still very entertaining, and I'm not going to give away the rest of what happens in that season. So, holy moly, it's warm out here.
It is. Love her socks though, and the brown shoes.
Yeah.
Really good, and the bow tie's pretty good too.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
It is. Yeah,
It draws attention away from the face. So.
Anyway, Bodies. I have to water these guys. Bodies, Rest and Motion. Warm for them too. So, Phoebe Cates, Bridget Fonda, Tim Roth, Eric Stoltz. The only person I'd really recognized out of here was Tim Roth.
Is Bridget Fonda Jane Fonda's daughter or granddaughter now?
I
know
have
her
no idea.
daughter around 25 years ago was trying to carve out a career.
Well, that must be her, because
Okay,
this is
a little
1993. This movie.
Oh, there we go.
Right, so, anyway, I didn't like the movie. I thought it was stupid. Whatever. It says it's for 20-something friends, for 20-something friends, explore love, desire, and commitment in this irresistibly charming, blah, 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 blah,
Trying
blah,
to
blah.
learn how to smoke. Is that, who is that? Is that Phoebe Cates in?
I don't
Oh, you
know,
don't know.
probably.
But smoker or non-smoker? It just doesn't look real.
No, it does not look
No,
good.
there you go.
Anyway, I don't know. So, that's all I had to review. which is the name of the poem that you had me write out in here?
Oh, wild west wind,
Oh, yes.
thou breath of autumn's being.
Okay.
So let's
And-
try 244.
Oh, okay, that's lucky if you remember that, because this has an index of first lines, which is really annoying. 244? I'm
Well-
around there. I'm just gotta.
Doesn't look like it.
I
Okay,
don't think
let's
so,
see.
because I don't remember
Okay,
the
try
pages being ripped
344.
where I was. Well, I'm just gonna look
Well,
up.
check up Oh Wild West Wind.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. But I don't like the index of first lines, although.
I hate that. They should have both, actually.
Oh, wild west wind, thou breath of autumn being 577. You were way off on that one.
No, so close.
That's okay.
2 is kind of like 5, and I did realize that the last two numbers were the same.
Okay. So, hero here, and I'm looking for the first lines. He did do it. Oh, not consistently. Shit. Okay. Flowers, powers. He did it almost, like half the time. Whatever.
Yeah. Not impressed.
No, that's too bad. I was hoping for, like, when I wrote out this, we did a poetry in the park, and James had me write out the first 14 lines of this ode to the west wind.
We basically call that a stanza, the first
Yeah.
5 stanzas. I think they all
Yeah.
follow that pattern.
Yeah, they do. So they all followed the same pattern, but not exactly. So what I liked was that he used the being and fleeing on like the feminine rhymes on the A rhymes, just to keep it a little more interesting, because in the Terza Rima, there's 3 rhymes for each, except for the first. So the being and fleeing, right? The A rhymes. So
Which makes it demanding. I think that's another thing that makes it
a more
hard
interesting
thing.
form.
Well, it's more interesting. It makes it hard to do.
Yeah,
you know,
well,
more
it's
rhymes
a
you
much
chuck
more
in.
complicated form. So
Instead
it's
of
impressive
rhyming
that he tried to do this.
An A with A,
But
you've got to rhyme
It's too
with B
bad
with
that
a
he
B
didn't
with B.
have his feminine rhymes on all of his A's. We wanted to look that up, and it's not that. I think you already knew that.
I knew he wouldn't have.
Yeah, but I
He was
didn't.
such a
So,
slovenly stylist with him.
well, it's impressive that he tried that, and this is it. I think, he tried.
Yeah, he wrote
lot,
too
so-
much. He died fairly young. I think he died in a boating accident or something.
Hmm.
Byron had the good taste to die fighting the Turks in Greece.
Oh, did he?
Well, he was a good guy. The Turks were nasty back then. They had no business being in Europe at all.
All right,
They still don't.
you can take your mask off and
Okay.
talk about the Bible.
The Bible, I don't know how they say it. I think generally the Afrikaans is the Afrikaans Bible. The Afrikaans, when they use a Y, it's in German it's a EI or something like that. Pronounced I as in Einstein, not as Bernstein or something like that. People mispronounce. They should say Bernstein, which I believe means amber. Isn't that a lovely name? It's a lovely last name, Amber. You know, you can get someone of Jewish, it tends to be a Jewish name, Bernstein. It would be great to have a name. Amber Bernstein. It would be nice. Amber. Amber basically, I think, means electricity in Greek. It'd be, apparently you can get static electricity from amber. That might have been the form of electricity the Greeks knew. I don't know whether they would have recognized that lightning, for example, was electricity. I think we're led to believe that Benjamin Franklin, maybe around 1750 or something like that, the American thinker and politician, and something of science. Discovered it, and the story goes he almost lost his life. He hit a kite in a thunderstorm. Collected electricity in a, I think it's a capacitor of some sort of a jar fixed in, and then connected it somehow or another to the string of the kite he was flying. But maybe that's a bit of a story, made up story, somewhat like the story about George Washington cutting down a cherry tree with a hatchet or something like that when he was a kid, and then saying, "I cannot tell a lie. It was I who cut down the cherry tree." And we're told that that's a little fiction. How would you know? How would you know it's true? How would you know it's made up? Some kid might have been that way. I know it seems just preposterous for a kid to actually tell the truth about something like that. So we were looking at, I was mentioning I didn't have the Bible app. I finished it up the other day. And I was mentioning, I figured it'd be a good idea. I've largely had this unofficially, to have an answer to New Year's resolutions. And this is like a new month's resolution. This is my month's resolution for less than I finished it up as I believe in 16 days or something like that. That's over 1,150 pages, including title pages and stuff like that. 1,174 pages, with only kind of like a margin in between, what you want to call them, references to parallel passages and stuff like that. It's fairly small print there, if you'll notice. It's a challenge to get through the Bible in English or in your native language. When you're teaching yourself a language, as I was, when I was going through this, with only a smattering of grammar, a smattering of dealing with Afrikaans English dictionary. I think it was more a glossary, grammar book. How much time? 15?
17 or 18.
Oh,
and I'm going to go to the library, and I'll just, if you could just bring the camera in, that's awesome.
Oh, okay, once it's over. Yeah. I'll just keep on talking and stuff like that. Because, unless the battery runs out, it doesn't give up.
I don't.
Things like that.
So go
Have fun at the library. I know it's kind of tough. Stuff at the library these days, people aren't masking. You know, you'd expect that people.
Many are though, James.
Some are? I don't see many. Pauline is over there more than I am. I haven't seen many. There's one guy who is a very good poet. He might be one of the top 5 poets in Canada. He's here in Lethbridge. He and his wife always seem to be wearing a mask when they're over at the library, and more power to him. He's a little bit older than me, but I think he'd do that just as a favor to people, not just as a favor to himself. When you're wearing a mask, you're actually doing a favor to people, because you could have caught something, even if you're pretty careful about wearing a mask inside. There's a certain plague out there that is catchable. I know from experience, and so does my wife. Catchable outdoors, if people get close enough, if they're upwind or something like that. So, what did I want to read? Well, I want to read from a psalm. Was it Psalm 106 or something like that? It's Psalms, I don't know if they say the P in Africa, it's hard to say. Yeah, so here's David, King David, the second king of the Israelites. I don't know what the political correct term is. You know, like after the 10 lost tribes got lost, I think now, referring to the people that were left in the Holy Land, you're supposed to refer to them as Judahites or Judahites. I've never heard anyone say it, so I don't know if it's Judahites or Judahites. It's got an H in it, so I don't think you're supposed to call them Jews. Maybe it's only Jews nowadays, or Jews in the time of the New Testament. You just don't know. You just don't know if someone's going to take it wrongly. If you use the wrong term, people are very sensitive about words nowadays. When I was a kid, I was told, and there's an element of truth in this, sticks and stones can break your bones, but names can never hurt you. But apparently it's almost like can cause mortal injury to some people to use the wrong. I don't believe in using words that are hurtful or stuff like that, but you know, if people call me this, that, or the other thing, it's the intent that counts. If someone doesn't mean injury and you take offense, you get something wrong. So this is an answer of sorts, and you're going to be subjected to it. Hopefully, someone will recommend to Karen Armstrong. Watch this podcast, Karen, and you might learn a little bit about real life and real religion. She seems to have invented her own little religion. It seems to be maybe a little bit like Baha'i, with some sort of Buddhism chucked in, and maybe some Christianity. I gather she's kind of like a flunked out nun or something like that. Was she in training to be a nun, or did she actually try being a nun? Anyway, so I'm going to be translating into the English, not back into the English, because the English isn't the original. So, lean out of your heaven, Lord, and approach near. Touch the mountains, so that they smoke. I don't think that's smoking cigarettes. I think that's you really slam the mountain. Touch the mountain, but it's what sort of touching? And stretch out of the heights and hand out. I'm not sure what that would be. Reach me out, grasp me out. So it's probably stretch out your hand and save me out of the great waters, so huge waters, out of the hand of the strangers, foreigners. Whose mouths, the apostrophe S in Afrikaans is kind of like SE, a separate word. So you see who, SE instead of apostrophe S. Whose mouths speak lies, and whose right hand is a right hand of treachery. So and before then, I missed one. I started with verse 6. Throw lightnings and destroy them. So I presume that's the mountains. Send a pile, is cognate with the German Pfeil, I'm sure, which means arrow. Send out your arrow and sow chaos in them. Verwahr as would be something like German verwehr, which means to just, like throw confusion, stuff like that. So, what does that have to do with? I mean, he's talking about mountains and God or Lord. It's Hera, which is cognate with German Herr, which is Lord. He's saying hit the mountains, but then he's saying hit my enemies. So David was a king of Israel, and apparently a fairly successful king. The account in the scripture, Hebrew scripture, seems to indicate his something like kingdom. You couldn't really call it an empire. He didn't set up a dynasty that ruled over the full extent of this area that he campaigned in. But it looks as though he campaigned all the way to the Euphrates. It beat the Great Bend of the Euphrates, way up in, I presume it's in Syria right now, all the way down to the border of Egypt. Extensive, but it's not as though he set up a kingdom that extended that far. He would have campaigned that far, and it could have been just 1 year that he campaigned there, and that far up to the Euphrates, and then all the way down to the border of Egypt. And when they say the border of Egypt, they really mean Egypt. They're not talking about the Brook of Egypt, unless they actually refer to the Brook of Egypt. I presume that's the Wadi of Egypt, and not Nile, the Nile itself. So I'll be subjecting you to the reality of the Old Testament. You hear that, Karen Armstrong, and all you folks going around saying religions are basically all about peace, love, and flowers. I only know of 2 religions where you could describe those religions as being about peace, something like peace, love, and flowers. And one is Moism, so that's Moti or Motsi, however you want to mispronounce it. In the Chinese tradition, he seemed to have come perhaps between Confucius and Mengzi or Mencius. Kung-Fu-Tzi is Confucius. And of course that's a mispronunciation, but Confucius is a Latinization of Kung-Fu-Tzi, and Mencius is a Latinization of Mengzi. And Mo is seen as a bad guy by Mengzi. He came after him. Because, why? Because he preached love. That was bad. And apparently Moti had a bit of a revival under the commies in China, led by, or misled by, Mao Zedong. I like to use the word dung, because I don't like making fun of the Chinese language or languages. It's really a variety of different languages. I gather many of them not mutually understood. And what they share is the writing system. The sound system's different in, for example, in Cantonese and Mandarin. Different number of tones. It's stunning. And you'll find in Cantonese, it's rare to find a syllable in Mandarin that ends in a consonant, but you can find it. Find such examples in Cantonese, and as I recall, it's maybe not common, but it happens somewhat frequently. So yeah, Mao was going around, and Mao and his flunkies were going around preaching, love. Well, like, what was it that, I think it was Che Guevara said, a revolutionary is possessed of great love. Maybe possessed is not a good translation. I kind of say that. I don't think that's in the translation I ran across, because I see commies like him as being possessed of something or by something, but not by love. Starting with Marx, probably before, like Proudhon, the socialists were the unscientific socialists and what I call the scientific socialists, but ironically, Marx styled himself, I think, as a scientific socialist. They've been possessed of great hatred. It's not just a bit of hatred, great hatred, incredible hatred. This is what's behind all forms of Marxism, is staggering hatred. I want to characterize it carefully for you. It's not like, oh man, I hate food, this type of food or something like that. It's sociopathic, and in some cases, as with Stalin, possibly Trotsky, psychopathic hatred. The kind of hatred that's capable of having millions and tens of millions of people killed. Mao Zedong. It would be, I'm pretty sure he was bipolar based on, that's not my own diagnosis. Well, it is actually, but based on his doctor's biography of Stalin. It's a huge, big, thumping thing. It might be 600 pages long in translation in English. And he says Mao was subject to fits of activity, like where he found it hard to sleep, but that would be followed by bouts of not getting out of bed for days. It's like that. Sounds like not even manic behavior, but manic depressive, what used to be called manic depressive behavior, I think now it's called, I don't know. Eventually it will suffer the same fate that manic depressive had, and become vitiated in the eyes of the politically correct, medically correct, and stuff like that, and then come up with a new term. I won't be bipolar, and then you won't be supposed to say that, bipolar. I suspect it's medically or psychologically incorrect to say manic depressive, but I'm going to say it anyway, manic depressive. And the thing is, if a person's manic depressive, it can't help it. It looks to be a genetic condition. Pete Townsend describes his mother as being what looks like manic depressive, and he's actually come out. It's not admitted. I don't think anyone ever confronted him. Are you a manic? Are you now, or have you ever been manic depressive? But he, in his autobiography, he divulged, shall we say, that he was manic depressive and took treatment for it. That's your responsibility. If you're manic depressive, you should take treatment, because you kind of tend to be destructive, not just of yourself, but sometimes with other people. Things like that. And Mao was very destructive of society. It's really in his hands, socialism. And in the hands of Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky. So you hear that, all the Trotskyists or Trotskyites. I think the Russian is Trotskyist.